It is my pleasure to be here. I always say that it is an honor to serve in this capacity, and certainly a commitment that I would have made that I will come every month and meet with the press. I'm very happy that since I was elected in December of 2017 that I've kept that commitment. And so we're here yet again today to invite questions from the members of the media and to get a sense of where we are and what we're seeking to do on the island. This morning I woke with the very sad news that we had had a shooting incident on the island of Nevis, and that a young man is even now, as we speak, seeking, getting medical attention, and it is our hope that he will survive the wounds that he would have suffered, inflicted, by firearm. We do not yet have much information. The police authorities are naturally out. I would urge anyone who has information, please, to get in touch with our police and to share that information with them. The public would know that we have made considerable effort and some progress in the fight against crime, particularly violent crime. But the events of the last 2 or 3 weeks have caused some consternation as we wonder what, again, are our young people engaging themselves in. I would think that given an opportunity for greater hope, given an opportunity for our people, particularly our young, to live more fulsome lives, given an opportunity for the island and the country to be at peace, given an opportunity for us as a government and in the private sector to create the environment in our country for growth and development, that our young people would respond positively. I am persuaded that the vast majority of our young people are in fact responding positively, and I would hope that those few who continue to have criminal minds and continue to be bent on criminality, that those individuals will cease and desist this activity. At the end of the day, I have said time and time again from this rostrum and elsewhere that crime does not pay. And whatever short-term gains that people think that they're getting ultimately ends in long-term pain. They either end up at 1840, as a prison in St. Kitts, or they end up at the public cemetery, either Britannic or Springfield. You take your pick. It really does not pay. And I believe that over the last 2.5 to 3 years, we have ushered into being an environment in the country which is far better for us all. And so I am hopeful and prayerful that this young man survives. I, of course, extend my very deep concerns and condolences to his family and friends, and hope that those who would have involved themselves at almost 3 a.m. today in this type of criminal behavior, that they will be swiftly brought to justice. Of course, the public would know that 2 Fridays ago we had an unfortunate homicide in Charlestown, and I believe the public would also know that through the assistance of the public and many civic-minded individuals, that the police have had an arrest and feel that they have solved that particular crime. Of course, while we commend the police for solving crime, I would much prefer to commend our society for there being no crime in the first place. But nevertheless, let me commend our police for their continued efforts, and our Superintendent Sutton and his team, who continue to work hard to keep Nevis safe. On the issue of the police, let me take a moment to congratulate Eureka Collins Percival, our beloved Inspector of Police, who retired from the Royal St. Christopher Nevis Force on the 16th of July 2021 after some 26 years of service. Inspector Percival would have entered the force in 1995 as a special constable and attained the highest score on the police entrance exam 2 years later. In May 1998, she was adjudged the best recruit of course 28, the very first female to hold that title. She was transferred to Nevis in February 2000, where she has served until retirement. So I believe it is fair to say that she has spent most of her career right here with us in Nevis. She's affectionately known as the Popcorn Lady. I think all of us know Inspector Collins Percival, and we wish her the very best in the next phase of her life. Thank you very much, Inspector, for your service. Let me also use the opportunity to congratulate the newly elected Prime Minister of St. Lucia, the Honorable Philip Joseph Pear, and his party, the St. Lucia Labour Party, who I'm advised captured 13 of the 17 seats on offer in the recently concluded general election in St. Lucia. I wish the Prime Minister and his cabinet a successful journey as they govern the affairs of St. Lucia, and would also use this rostrum to extend to my good friend, former Prime Minister Alan Chastanet, all the very best in his new role in the Parliament on the benches of the opposition. The public should be advised that a memorial service to commemorate the 51st anniversary of the MV Christina disaster will be held at 7:30 a.m. this coming Sunday, August 1st, at the Christina Memorial on the Samuel Hunkins Drive in Charlestown. Sadly, attendance will have to be restricted because of the COVID-19 protocols, but we are hopeful that persons may be able to follow the proceedings, and we have indicated that very historic event we had last year to commemorate the 50th anniversary, which was to have all former prime ministers and premiers who are still with us speak at the Nevis Island Assembly in a special sitting, that we will be replaying that throughout the day on Sunday so that persons, particularly our young ones, could be reminded of this tragedy and how it has shaped modern-day Nevis. And so that will happen on Sunday. We have, of course, already had the news, but I say so for completeness, that Monday and Tuesday will be public holidays. I know there was some debate as to why you having the public holiday if we don't have the jamming, if we don't have the Culturama. Well, I think the government decided that because it was the tradition and had been a long existing tradition, that we would maintain that tradition just as we did last year in the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I would invite persons to spend time with their families, spend time to strengthen those bonds that they have with loved ones, and to relax and recharge for the days of work that will come after Tuesday, and thereafter, of course, as we try to rebuild and to recover from this COVID-19 pandemic. Let me move very quickly to our Public Works and Ministry of Works. The Butler's Road Rehabilitation Project, of course, is a major project that we've undertaken, and that project continues. The project was mobilized on the 28th of May this year, and the first few weeks saw clearing of vegetation, excavation of the sloped embankments to facilitate road rewidening, survey, stakeout, and excavation of wall footings. The first retaining wall along Cistern Road, also sometimes referred to as Cistern Path, commenced on 16 June 2021. We have sought, as is this government's approach to development, to utilize contractors from the local area to undertake the works. And I'm pleased that thus far, the Ministry of Works has given contracts to 6 local contractors who are to date constructing 9 sections of retaining wall and have them at various stages of completion. An additional 4 more property walls will be commencing shortly. Once the walls are completed, we will commence construction of the road carriageway itself. We have also commenced excavation on the Middle Village Road, commonly known as the Range. The intention was to construct this segment of road to coincide with the wall construction along Cistern Road, Cistern Path. However, works on that section had to be halted because of some issues related to the depths for the water pipes. Notwithstanding, we're working closely with the Nevis Water Department, and we're sorting those issues out expeditiously. New water lines will also be put in place because, of course, whenever we do road projects, we also take the opportunity to upgrade the water distribution network as well. Along Jew Street, right here in the heart of Charlestown, we have some ongoing works. We have Phase 2, which is a continuation of the road improvement and maintenance in Charlestown proper. The first phase will have commenced in April, which coincided with the Easter vacation break. That included the construction of a concrete curb and sidewalk adjacent to the stone wall of the Anglican Church manse, and one would notice that the concrete strips in the sidewalk followed by open spaces. Those spaces will be filled with paving bricks. The Ministry of Public Works has ordered those bricks and would have them shortly to be installed. The current works commenced on the 21st of July. This now is a section of Jew Street from Government Road to MS Trading Driveway and from Marion Avenue to Ramsbury going northward. The section is scheduled to receive a first layer of asphalt on Sunday, the 1st of August, including the intersection at Happy Hill Drive. The works at Jew Street will also include a concrete ditch with a concrete box, replacing the concrete ditch with a concrete box culvert. To minimize traffic disruption, the culvert will be a segmented box culvert which will be installed in site. The next phase will include this culvert and the upgraded intersection at the Happy Hill Drive and Jew Street. The final phase will include the rehabilitation work on Chapel Street from Ramsbury Road by the Maud Cross Preparatory School to Chapel Street ending at the Methodist Church step. We, of course, would wish to thank the public for its patience with us as we try to improve the infrastructure around Charlestown, and commend, as always, the leadership of Minister Brand, Permanent Secretary Stapleton, and the entire team at Public Works, who have continued to demonstrate excellent leadership and commitment as we undertake the infrastructural improvements across the length and breadth of the island of Nevis. I would want to go on record to say thank you for the excellent initiative that we are currently experiencing here. The name of the group eludes me at the moment, but I think it's the Nevis Development Group, is it what they call? It's a group in any event that has been put together here. Nevis Community Development, I think they're called. It's a group that has been put together that is a group of civic-minded individuals who came to us through Minister Spencer Brand and proposed a project, a public-private sector partnership to erect street signs around Charlestown. This is a matter that we know has bedeviled us. It is a matter that many have complained about, particularly our visitors. And I'm very proud that we are not only erecting signs, but we're erecting signs that are to international standards, that are reflective at nights, and that these signs are intended, of course, to ease traffic and ease maneuverability around Charlestown. I think that they're very eye-catching, very professionally done, and I would want to go on record again to congratulate all those involved, including Minister Spencer Brand, who pushed very hard for this particular initiative and who came and brought it to our cabinet for its blessings. You will also see over the next several days a number of signs going up across the length and breadth of the island of Nevis. This is a joint venture with the Ministry of Tourism, the Nevis Tourism Authority, but also we got who I like to call the Action Minister, the Deputy Premier, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, and we asked him to spearhead this particular effort. Again, we have sought to use all local inputs, and I believe that the general public will be very pleased with the quality of what we are doing. It took some time for us to think about it and put it together, but again, the purpose is to ease the maneuverability, the ability to get around the island, particularly for our visitors, but even for some of us who drive but are not always sure where we are. In fact, I should say that one particular street sign in Nevis, Featherbed Alley, I got several calls. People told me they walked there every day and they did not know that there was a Featherbed Alley in Charlestown. And for those of you members of the press who are even wondering now what I'm talking about, it's right next to the Charlestown Health Center. So we are embarking on that, and I think that it is, again, part and parcel of our effort to lift the island. We have other things in store. I won't say today because I'm told by those who are putting them in place that they want it to have a bit of a surprise effect for the public. But let us just say that we are really making some real initiatives to do small things that have a major impact in terms of making our people proud of this, our beloved Nevis. Let me shift to the Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports, Community Development. You would recall that during the Christina Memorial of last year, that we had a commitment that we made that we would, during the ensuing period, inaugurate our efforts to generate greater exposure to our people to swimming. That is of critical importance because the history suggests that many who would have perished on the Christina disaster on that fateful day could not swim. And if some of you are like me and you were raised by a mother like mine, you were admonished, particularly now in the summertime when schools are out, not to go to the sea because you would surely drown. And so many of us grew up not learning how to swim, not being able to swim, which is an odd thing for island people surrounded by ocean, that many of us cannot swim. And so we made that commitment, and I'm very proud to say that after I would have launched that initiative in January of 2020, and the tremendous success of that program so far, the Christina Memorial Camps are now underway on Nevis and have created more opportunities for persons on the island to learn the art of swimming. I would have announced the camps on August 1st, 2020, during a special sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly as part of the 50th memorial of the sinking of the MV Christina. 1 week of the swim camps has been completed and another is in progress, with the first camp being dedicated to the students of the Cicely Brown Integrated School. On Friday, July 23rd, 14 students of that school received medals of participation. Instructors and primary school students are also benefiting from the camps. 15 local instructors have received certificates after being trained by international swimming instructor Miss Anne McLinden. The camps are being funded by the Nevis Island Administration and are being coordinated by the Department of Sports and will close on Friday, July 30th, that is tomorrow. The Swim to Win initiative was developed by Anne McLinden and Terry Andrews. And I use this rostrum to thank them both for their tremendous effort in teaching our children and adults how to swim. If you're members of the press here who can't swim, please, next time we run the camp, look forward to it and learn how to swim. It's very important, it's good exercise, but it's also something that could save your life. The Department of Youth has also recently produced a music video featuring the talents of young persons on the island. As the department continues to focus on the environment during 2021, the production, dubbed Save the Earth, was released on the department's Facebook page on July 5th. The music video is calling on all of us to change our habits and to do more to save planet Earth. We congratulate the Department of Youth for this very timely initiative. As we continue to celebrate our young people, let me also congratulate our young athlete, Leroy Chapman, who was part of the 4-member team that represented the Federation at the North American, Central American, and Caribbean Athletic Association, NACAC, Under 23 Games, held on the 9th of July in Costa Rica. Leroy didn't medal, but he performed exceptionally well, and we would want to credit him, congratulate him, and urge him to continue his efforts in that regard. If I can shift now to agriculture, where we have been seeing quite a bit of activity as this government pivots to greater food security for our island. We would have had the report that 5 farmers in Nevis have thus far benefited from free shade houses provided to them through the government at a cost each of $67,500 EC dollars. Those farmers were selected based on their already established track record of production and their capacity to utilize the particular technology. It is our hope that through our investment in those farmers, that they will be able to increase their capacity and increase their production as we ramp up and seek to feed our people. It is also important that, as the Prime Minister has announced, a target date of October for a full reopening of the country, that we are hopeful that we can salvage a tourism season this year, and therefore in our hotel and restaurant sector there will be a greater demand for food. And so the hope is that Nevis will cut back on its food import bill and we will have greater food import substitution through local organic products, which are better for us, healthier, and we hope more affordable for our people. As part and parcel of that effort, I am pleased that tomorrow, Friday, the 30th of July, commencing at 7 a.m., we are going to have what is being referred to as a Freedom Market. And on sale locally here from our local farmers will be fresh fruits and vegetables, meats and processed meats from our abattoir, fish and seafood, both raw and cooked from the fisheries complex. I'm told they'll have things like conch chowder, lobster chowder, as well as fried fish and bakes. And also available will be agro-processed items from our agro-processing unit. The prices are likely to be low, and so we're asking folks to come and stock up so that they will have great organic food for the holiday weekend. We'll have a little bit of music, and we will have some giveaways as part of that experience. This will replace our normal fruit festival, which of course we would usually have during Culturama. So the Freedom Market being hosted tomorrow right here in Charlestown, and it is commencing at 7 a.m. until 3 p.m. We ask you to go out and stock up for the weekend. The Ministry and Department of Agriculture on Wednesday, very significant, were the recipients of 10 special breed goats from Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine. At a ceremony held in Dieppe Bay in St. Kitts, our Federal Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, accepted 25 goats in total. These goats are mixed with a very prolific boar breed, which grows bigger and faster than our local animals. Incidentally, I was told that the full-bred boar goat can give up to sometimes 300 pounds of meat compared to some of the animals we currently have here, which give just 25 or 40 pounds of meat. So that would be significant if we can get that genetic pool here, where these animals grow faster and could give you more meat. They're able to attain market weight in a much shorter time, and we would want to go on record to thank Ross University for this welcome gift to our Small Ruminant Development Initiative. These animals, I'm advised, will eventually make their way to our various farmers. And so farmers who are into livestock, we're looking out for you in terms of trying to better the quality of the breeds that you have, and so again enhance our capacity to feed ourselves. Switching to the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Health and Gender Affairs would wish to congratulate Ms. Shaquila Walters, Ms. Melinda Liebert, and Ms. Akeisha McDonald, all of whom recently completed their 4-year nursing program at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College, and who were also successful in passing the regional nursing exam. The 3 young nurses have started their orientation and will join the staff at the Alexandra Hospital as registered nurse 2. We say welcome to them, and thank you to them, and congratulations to them. Let me use this opportunity to encourage others who are interested in nursing to pursue that very noble profession. We as a government offer as much incentive as we can to those seeking to pursue nursing. And it is now available right in St. Kitts at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College. And so we congratulate Nurse Walters, Nurse Liebert, and Nurse McDonald on their incredible achievement, and look forward to interacting with them at our Alexandra Hospital. Let me also celebrate with the recipients of the 2021 Medical University of the Americas and NIA scholarships. A total of 8 individuals will have applied for this very prestigious scholarship. As we know, this government would have negotiated with MUA when they came many years ago that they will provide 2 scholarships each year to Univision students. And this year we had 8 applicants for that scholarship. It is one of the best scholarships available because they pay virtually for everything. I am pleased to announce that Ms. Asha Walters Hanley will pursue a bachelor degree in radiology at the University of the West Indies, and Ms. Dakia Liebert will pursue a degree in biology and mathematics at the University of the Virgin Islands. The official handing over ceremony will be held later this week. We say congratulations to these students and wish them all the best as they embarked on a new chapter in their academic life. And so, heartiest congratulations. I know both young ladies, Asha Walters-Hanley and Dakia Liebert, and wish them all the very best. One is off to UVI to do biology and math, and the other is off to the University of the West Indies to do radiology. And these are very important subject areas, again, part and parcel of our developmental thrust. Congratulations to them and to their families, and we wish those two young ladies all the very best. Let me also congratulate, since I'm in a congratulatory mood, our newest doctors. We have 3 Univision students who have recently completed their medical training in Cuba. I speak of Dr. Crystal Keynes, Dr. Callis Farrell, and Dr. Andrew Carlos Liebert. All would have graduated from La Escuela de Medicina in Cuba on the 21st of July 2021 with degrees in medicine. The Ministry of Health and by extension the Nevis Island Administration congratulates these young professionals. And again, we thank the Cuban government and the Cuban people for this assistance in training our citizens. Cuba has a long tradition of providing training to our medical personnel here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And many of our young people who could not otherwise afford the high cost of university education have benefited from scholarships to study in Cuba. And that is why we continue to support, in a very clear and open way, the government and people of Cuba for the good that they have done in the Caribbean, the good they have done globally, and continue to call on our friends in the United States of America to remove this long-standing and anachronistic embargo that they have placed on the Cuban people. I say the Cuban people because ultimately these types of initiatives hurt people. And whilst the effort might have been to get at the Castro regime, the result of it, the consequence of it is to hurt ordinary Cubans. And so we urge again the presidency of Joseph Biden to have another look and to do as his Democratic predecessor did, President Barack Obama, and seek to loosen this terrible blockade of the island of Cuba that has persisted now for 6 decades, far too long. It is a relic of the Cold War. The Cold War has gone, and yet this remains. We must sometimes reflect on world history, that Germany and America were at war, that Germany and England were at war in the First World War and in the Second World War, that we have had Germany divided into East Germany and West Germany, and the infamous Berlin Wall that we all heard about. The Berlin Wall has come down. We have heard of the Cold War, when the USSR, as it then was, and America vied for ideological supremacy in the world. We have heard of communism, and we have heard of capitalism and the contest between those ideals. It must be, I believe, a remarkable thing that Germany and America have made peace, that Germany and England and France have not only made peace, but at one point were all members of the European Union, that sworn and mortal enemies now sit at the table of brotherhood together, that Russia, which was the country behind the USSR, has, for the most part, seen that empire disintegrate, and that different countries have emerged, who are all former Soviet bloc countries. And throughout it all, the world has moved on. So what then of Cuba? And why has Cuba not been allowed to move on, given that the rest of the world, including those who waged war on others, including those who initiated some of the worst atrocities the world has seen, peace has been made, and they now sit at the table of brotherhood. And yet Cuba, the little island off the coast of Florida, is continuing to be pressured and the Cuban people continuing to be pressured in this way. And it must be a remarkable thing that despite that pressure, Cuba, not from its excess, but from its own need, has said to us as Caribbean people, send us your students. Even in this COVID pandemic and our fight against it, the Cuban Brigade were the first at our doorstep to offer their assistance, even as they themselves in Cuba struggled with COVID. I believe that all of us owe Cuba a debt of gratitude. Let me also thank the following list of individuals who have recently made significant contributions to our hospital, health centers, our nursing home, and our departments and ministries within the Nevis Island administration. Our dear friends of the Circle of Care, through my friend and sister, Janet Maynard, and Mr. Winston Skeet, for 6 pallets of cleaning supplies from Canada. Harvest International, Mr. Danny Thomas and Giselle Hidalgo. SMOKH, through Mr. Rene Busu and Dr. Charles McWilliams, who donated a 40-foot container of cleaning and medical supplies totaling some US $120,000 from Miami. And Mr. Freddie Paris, who kindly provided haulage for free. To the Ministry of Tourism, our signature project of this administration, the park at Pinnes, it continues to progress smoothly. Construction is now at 71.8%. Landscaping is at 56.5%. And we now have a proposed opening date. Please put this in your calendar, December 15th, Wednesday, December 15, 2021. That's the date that we hope we can unveil this incredible national initiative to the people of Nevis and the wider Federation. The position of the manager for this park, we have, of course, advertised that position and have been interviewing persons. Thus far, we have some 65 persons who have responded to this job advertisement. 2/3 of these 65 are residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. But, members of the press, you should know that we've also received applications from Trinidad and Tobago, from Barbados, Dominica, St. Vincent, Antigua, Statia, the USVI, the USA, and from as far away as Brazil and India. The successful applicant will be shortly announced. Vacancies for other positions at the park will also be shortly announced in the upcoming months. At our initiative at New River, I have come in the past to report that we were doing some work there. I now report that we have ended that work and that the perimeter fence at New River has been completed. With the completion of that fence, the ministry will now be able to proceed with this initiative to develop an integrated agritourism experience on site in collaboration with our Department of Agriculture and other key stakeholders. The first phase of the project will be landscaping of the site and the addition of essential visitor facilities. The fence will also be instrumental in protecting the monuments and artifacts there and will facilitate repair work on the historic ruins and other upgrades. The general public is asked to note that the site can be accessed between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. from Monday to Friday. If you wish to access the site for a special occasion on the weekend, please contact the Ministry of Tourism. COVID-19 protocols must be observed by all visitors to the site. We intend to develop there at New River a journey through Nevis's agricultural history through engagement with the key export crops grown on the island in the past, including cotton. I know cotton well, I used to pick cotton. Indigo, I confess I'm not familiar with how indigo grows or looks. Tobacco, I know that well. Sugarcane, coconut, bananas, and ginger. The long-term objective is to eventually integrate New River and Coconut Walk estates, as well as the Lime Kill, as one cohesive tourism experience. The cotton ginnery on the site at New River will be transformed into a multimedia interpretation center, which will provide detailed information to visitors and locals about Nevis's primary agricultural commodities. It is intended that this site at New River will provide a nucleus for a variety of agritourism and other experiences at the site itself, as well as the surrounding areas. Ladies and gentlemen, I go back to where I started on the issue of crime, and only to report that I was given some statistics just this morning, and that those statistics are suggesting that crime across the Federation has, at this point, shown a 33% decline. And we are hopeful that, while it's early yet, that by the end of the year, that decline will be even more dramatic. I should add that we continue to work closely with our police. We continue to use technology. In fact, I am hopeful that I will be in a position to announce very shortly the commissioning of our CCTV system, and that will add immeasurably to our ability to detect and hopefully to deter criminal activity on the highways and byways of our island and our wider country. And so we continue to urge those who have seen something to say something and to work with our police. I will leave it there and take your questions now with a view to seeking to do the best I can to answer the concerns that members of the press might have. Thank you. Me?
Salbona. I am Dion Hanley, and today I'm representing Black Home Channel. Last press conference, I asked you, the Premier, what support is the government providing for the unemployed and struggling small businesses? You said to me that struggling persons should go to social services. Well, several days ago, information came to my desk that the government was at the administration building yard giving out envelopes with money inside and a number of food vouchers to a large group of persons from the Spanish community. My question to you is, why is the government secretly giving out money and food vouchers to a small group in our society while abandoning the larger population? Why is the government carrying out economic apartheid in Nevis against its own people? Question number 2. There are complaints throughout Nevis that Nevisian citizens are not benefiting from the poverty alleviation program of $500 monthly. In fact, I did some investigation and persons revealed to me that there are Spanish and Guyanese households where 4, 5, and 6 people living in one house and all are receiving the poverty alleviation payment of $500 each while working at the same time. So some of these households are receiving over $2,000 monthly just from the poverty alleviation check, while Nevisians in need receive nothing. My question to you is, why is your government using the poverty alleviation program as a political weapon? And why is the government creating an economic apartheid environment in Nevis by empowering a small group of people while weakening the others? What kind of sick game is this government playing with the lives of Nevisians? Final question. Last press conference, you said the government is farming 35 acres of land at Indian Castle. I believe this is a great project. However, my difficulty with this project is that the local farmers in the area is not included. Currently, the government policy is that no local farmer is allowed to plant any food at Indian Castle. But at the same time, the government is down there farming 35 acres of land in the same area. Again, I say to you, Mr. Premier, that is economic apartheid. My question to you is, what do you hope to achieve in the farming industry at Indian Castle without including local farmers and fishers? How will this farming project put money in the pockets of local farmers and fishers in the area? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hanley, thank you very much for your questions. You have used some very colorful language, and I'm happy that your vocabulary has expanded since the last time you and I would have spoken. That's good. But to suggest that this government has embarked upon any kind of economic apartheid, to use the language that you have really used and punctuated your questions with, is arrant nonsense. And I believe that you have a duty as a member of the press to inform yourself before you come here. I have been doing this press conference now since 2017, Mr. Hanley, and my remonstration with you has been consistent. Seek to inform yourself before you come here. This is not intended to be, as I keep reminding you, some political grandstanding or some effort at levity. This is not intended. Mr. Hanley, could you, Mr. Hanley, could you please have, Mr. Hanley, could you, Mr. Hanley, could you, Mr. Hanley, could you please have a seat? And if you cannot conduct yourself, you're free to leave. As I've said to you, this is not some effort at political grandstanding on your part. You have tried that and you have failed. If you've come as a member of the press to ask questions, then allow me an opportunity to answer those questions. Part of why this works, if it is to work at all, is for you to inform yourself as to what is happening, so that when you come and we have an opportunity to have an engagement, it is based on fact. Now imagine you're going to frame a question to me as the Premier of Nevis and tell me that in town, envelopes with money were being handed out to Spanish people and food vouchers, but you then go on to say it's being done in secret. If you bothered to think about what you were saying, you would see the nonsense in what you were suggesting, without me even responding to you. Because people who do things in secret don't do it in a group in town. That is the first point I will make. And to come here week after week, month after month, with the same type of approach doesn't help us, it doesn't help the country. And whatever political agenda you're seeking to serve, it doesn't help that either. So all I'm asking, inform yourself. Come, let us respect each other. You don't have to support me, it doesn't matter, frankly. But let us respect each other. And if you are a legitimate and bona fide member of the press, come not with empty rhetoric about economic apartheid based on obvious lies, but come instead with information that you have researched. You have heard of groups in town getting envelopes with money from the government and it's being done in secret. That in and of itself shows how nonsensical that is. Now there seems to be an effort by you and some others, Mr. Hanley, to create some type of void or division in the country. All of a sudden I'm hearing about Spanish and Guyanese and things like that. Let me just say and make it very clear to you and to others that as a government, we look after people. And that people who are here on the island of Nevis, who find themselves in difficulty, whenever we roll out programs and policies, we roll them out to benefit all. Those who are born here, those who may not have been born here but are here contributing, those who may not have been born here but are citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis through ancestry or other effort, that all of these individuals are individuals who are entitled to whatever it is the government has rolled out in terms of its policies. So efforts to get me engaged in who's Spanish and who's Guyanese and who's Kittitian and who's whatever, I'm not engaged in that, because as a government we take care of people. And wherever they may happen to originate, many of the people that it seems that in your questioning you have a difficulty with carry the same passport that you do and are equally entitled as you are to whatever the fruits and benefits of this country might be. And so that is something that I think we ought to get away from. All the policies that we've enunciated, and we've enunciated many, are intended to benefit the largest number of people that we can seek to benefit. The Poverty Alleviation Program is a federal program, it's a national program. It is very clear that the idea was to benefit households that have a household income of $3,000 or less. And so again, you come and you say 5 and 10 people in a house Guyanese and Spanish, all of them getting $500. That again on its face is simple nonsense. And again, I say that it is difficult for us to have a serious engagement when you continue month after month to come with what you hear, what you say somebody tell you, or what you perceive. All in an effort, regrettably, to create some kind of stir and to create some kind of political brouhaha, which I think ultimately is unnecessary, because it doesn't benefit you, it will not benefit you, and it doesn't benefit the community that I hope we are all seeking to serve. At Indian Castle, again, Mr. Hanley, if research means anything to you, you will know that Indian Castle is a government estate. It's a government estate. And so if the government on a government estate is doing work just as it's doing at Madden's, then what is the opposition to that? Saying that the government is telling private farmers they can't grow crops at Indian Castle. Well, there are no private farmers having lands at Indian Castle so far as I'm aware, because it's a government estate. And so the government has decided that 35 acres at Indian Castle will be utilized for purposes of developing fruit production on the island. And they've listed a whole host of fruits that they will grow there. And so the idea there is to have a large acreage, 35 acres by our standard is large, and to generate fruit production as part of, not in substitution for, but as part of the overall effort by this government for greater food security on the island. Again, I don't see what the discrimination is there against anyone, because the government is entitled, as it has always done, to grow crops, to raise animals, as the case may be. Right now at Madden's, we have the livestock farm there where the government has cattle. That doesn't stop anybody else from having cattle if they have the land to farm. The government's initiative at Indian Castle doesn't stop you, Mr. Hanley, from getting a piece of land and planting your vegetable trees that you said you would plant. It doesn't stop anything like that. You can go and you can plant the vegetable trees along the mountainside as you said you would. So understand, please, that when we come, if you come with facts, we can then have a debate based on facts. If you're not minded to engage in a factual discussion, then this is not the place. Perhaps you can call in on a radio station or engage in some other forum. But this is a forum where we try to drill down, get the benefit of the information, and where there are legitimate questions about that information, I try my very best to answer those questions. You have something further, Mr. Hanley?
Yes,
Yes.
You didn't answer any of my questions. What you just said about Indian Castle makes no sense, because Potworks is a government estate, Cades Bay is a government estate, Prospect is a government estate, so that doesn't make no sense.
Okay.
And what you said about me creating division, you are the one creating the division in the country by creating an economic space for where you empower a small group of people and you abandon the next. That is apartheid, and it is economic apartheid.
Okay.
And that is what you are doing, and that is creating division in the country. Okay. So I condemn those actions, and I call on you to stop immediately, or the people will deal with you. Okay. It's as simple as that. I condemn economic apartheid on the island of Nevis.
Mr. Hanley, please take a seat. And I would urge you that unless you have a question that is fitting for a press conference that the Premier is hosting, then don't get up again. Okay? You seem to have a lot of passion. Perhaps it's misdirected. Because I honestly don't know what it is that is irking you so much that you come here month after month with the same nonsense. It must be a matter of concern for you that you've become a laughing stock in the country. It has to be. And I'm encouraging you to do better because I think you can do better. Well, if you're here, Mr. Hanley, then do better. Standing up and trying again month after month to grandstand at this press conference hasn't helped you. Well, standing against me is of no consequence. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand, Mr. Hanley. Let us not allow the press conference to disintegrate, because you're seeking to use this as a political platform, and we already know that your days as a politician were over before they started. So let's leave that aside. Try something else. Leave that aside. And stop seeking to use this as some kind of podium for yourself, because that is not the purpose. Look at all the other members of the press who come here from around the country. They come here, they ask their questions, and we engage. There doesn't need to be any antagonism. There doesn't need to be any effort to grandstand. And most of all, Mr. Hanley, it doesn't need to be the base propaganda that you continue to try to spread. So let's leave that alone. And I believe if you truly understood the horrors of apartheid, that you wouldn't so loosely use that word. Because under a system of apartheid, people suffered in a significant way. And so I would urge you not to use that word. And frankly, if you were to think for a moment about what you're saying, any government that sought, Mr. Hanley, to only look after the few and to leave the majority without being looked after, that government wouldn't last for very long. Think about it. Because sometimes I believe that the Lord has given us a brain that we can engage that before we engage our mouth. If you think about it, you would understand that any government that only takes care of the minority will not last for very long. And this government has been here, except for a very short period of 5 years and 18 null and void months. It's been here since 1992. So that should say something to you if you are minded to listen and to consider. Are there any questions now from the other members of the press? I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning to you.
Shamika Bajin, Vaughan Radio. Can you give us an update on the MUA students? Will they be returning for the new semester?
Mm-hmm.
If not, what would this mean for those persons or those locals who depend on the university, such as those who rent apartments and the small shops in that area? Question 2. We are all aware that many gangs in the Federation were on halt, with a number of crimes including shooting or even worse, murder. With these recent upsurge of murders, would you say that the peace treaty is over? And my third question, what plans are in motion for Nivisians to travel to St. Kitts next month for the CPL? How would the government assure persons of being safe when traveling back and forth via the ferry services? Thank you.
Ms. Bajun, before you go, I'm not sure I understand your final question. People are traveling back and forth now, so why are you asking me if they're going to be safe using the ferry system?
Well, currently, I know that some persons are still afraid of going to St. Kitts right now.
Uh-huh.
And as you know, persons in St. Kitts and Nevis, they love cricket. So how can you, as the Premier, reassure them or give them some assurance of traveling back and forth on the ferry services?
Okay, the ferry service is safe. It has always been safe. And so individuals who are minded to travel for cricket are certainly safe traveling on our ferries, going back and forth. If perhaps the question has to do with the COVID situation in St. Kitts compared to Nevis, I think that the professionals have now said to us that the situation in St. Kitts has been brought under control. It is not the way it was. That is why we have slowly relaxed the protocols. That is why we've reopened the country. We no longer have the lockdowns. We have moved the curfew from 9 to 5 a.m. to now 11 to 5 a.m., and I anticipate that we will move it further. We have reduced the quarantine for fully vaxxed individuals coming in from 9 days to 3 days with testing and release on day 4 if they test negative. So I think we're moving in the right direction. Nivisians will decide whether they wish to go to cricket or not, just as they decide whether they wish to go to Carnival or not. It's a matter for them. I would say that what I would urge Nivisians to do, and not only Nivisians, but anyone attending the games, is to adhere to the protocols. As I understand it, the CPL will only be admitting vaccinated individuals to see the games, and those vaccinated individuals will have to adhere to the protocols in terms of wearing the mask and whatever else they are required to do. And so my advice to everyone is, if you're going to go out, be responsible. Same way if you go partying, you're asked to behave responsibly, don't get drunk and drive and do all that. We have to take some personal responsibility for what we do. MUA students, my last advice was that yes, they are coming back. I gather that the intention is for them to come in small batches. We have suffered, and I empathize certainly with those who have put infrastructure in place, the apartment owners, etc., because you are absolutely correct. We have suffered and they have suffered, but I'm advised that the MUA students will be back, and I'm hopeful that we have no further derailment of that, so that we can have that added string to our economic bow here, because of course the students add tremendous value for our restaurants, our car rentals, telecoms, etc., that they contribute significantly the 400 or 500 students we normally have here. And so I would also look forward to that, and we are having ongoing discussions with the ownership of the MUA to ensure that we get to that point and that they're back for the start of the new semester, which is going to be in a couple of weeks. Gangs in the Federation, you talked about an uptick. Yes, we are very concerned. However, the incident that we had in Nevis 2 Fridays ago was not perceived as a gang-related incident. That appeared to have been an unfortunate and terrible tragedy, but not gang-related. And we do not yet know whether the event we had last night here or the event in St. Kitts over the past few days, whether or not that was gang-related. So we wait and see. Not every crime, naturally, is gang-related. The sad thing is that with the prevalence of firearms, not only in St. Kitts and Nevis, it's a regional problem. We have a major firearm manufacturer and sadly exporter in the United States that is right next door. And so long as firearms can be purchased in states in the US where you have easy access, there's some states that you can go in and you purchase almost any kind of weaponry very easily. We will have the risk of smuggling and the risk of getting it here because we're so close. And so that is a major problem that we have of the prevalence of firearms. And before, people used to settle disputes perhaps with their fists, or they have a fight, they throw some stones, maybe they throw a bottle. Now with the access to firearms, people are taking that most deadly option. And what I can do is, what I continue to do is to urge our young people to reflect, to think before they engage, and to reflect on the damage that they're potentially doing to themselves. When I reflect on that tragedy in Charlestown 2 Fridays ago, you consider that one young man has lost his life and another young man has gone to prison, perhaps for the next 30 or so years if he's convicted. It therefore means that 2 young people have essentially lost their lives. One to the grave, the other to the jail. And our island has been robbed of any contribution that those 2 young men would have made. Their families have been robbed of any contribution that they would have made to their families. And I believe when our people start to consider that this is a vicious cycle that ultimately is unhelpful and ultimately damages not only the victims but all of us in society, I believe that we will see the light and stop this type of behavior. And so that is my hope, that it is not a question of any peace being over, because we have recognized that already we are reaping the dividends of peace, and that any community which is at peace is a far better community than one which is not. You look across the globe, and the societies that are doing best are the ones where law and order, respect for the rule of law, and peace are paramount. I like to look at the Scandinavian countries as my guide because they do so well. Sweden, Finland, those type of countries. I look at countries like Singapore, which do so well, and you realize that the principal component is that they have low crime and the people are at peace. When you don't have to worry about crime, you use your efforts for productive things. And so it is my hope that we will never get to the point where we say that the peace is over. but that these youngsters will continue to see value in living together at peace and protecting themselves, their families, and our country. Are there any other questions, members of the press?
Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning to
Hopefully
you.
my questions will be a little less contentious than what would have gone before. Can we get an update on the vaccination drive on the island? Also, would you be able to give your assessment of the economic recovery process on the island? And has there been any feedback from the hotel sector with respect to advanced bookings? And is there any information on the distribution of the federal government's stimulus checks for Nevis?
Thank you very much for your questions, all excellent questions. Update on vaccination, I believe today they're providing vaccines, I know in Charlestown, and I believe also in, I would want to think, Combermere today. Tomorrow they will be in Brownhill, and they will also be in Cotton Ground tomorrow, Friday, starting at 9 a.m. We continue to use the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. Thus far, I think as of yesterday, we had well over 5,800 or thereabouts persons that had a first shot on Nevis, and close to 5,000 persons had had a second shot. We have 54% now of our adult population in Nevis are fully vaccinated, and 37% of our complete total population is fully vaccinated as of yesterday. I'm sorry? 5318 have taken the first shot, and 4,600 or thereabouts? 4621 have taken their second shot. So we have 4621 who have gone, but well over 5,000 people on Nevis have already gone and heeded the admonitions, looked and satisfied themselves. And I said so last night, and I'll say so again, that one particular young lady, she knows who she is. I've been talking to her for the past months about it. She had concerns, but yesterday she told me that she and her entire family went and got vaccinated. So I'm encouraged by that, and I continue to encourage our people to go out. Of course, 70% has always been the target, but we want 70 and above. So we're currently at 54% of the adult population, and we're hopeful that we can continue in that vein to get our people fully vaccinated. That's what we hope to do. In terms of economic recovery, we are now, in the next few weeks, going to be doing a sort of deep dive in terms of where we are. We are still in a very difficult and precarious position now because our revenue stream has not only been significantly reduced, but we have also had added demands on us. So, for example, we have given considerable concessions to our farming community. We have given considerable concessions to our small business community. We have given considerable concessions to those homeowners who are in construction and building a home or adding on to their home, as the case may be. And so we think that that has resulted in us having an erosion of our usual ability to bring in revenue. We see that, however, as a necessary expenditure to generate economic activity on the island. And we are pleased that, for example, in construction and in agriculture, we are seeing considerable movement on the ground. I think all of us who live here would admit that as a driver around the island, you see a considerable level of home construction, building construction that is happening, and you see a considerable level of agriculture that is happening across the island. And so we see those as two growth areas, and we will have a deeper dive to really be able to understand how they have been impacting. In terms of the government's revenue, that continues to be down. The last indications we had, Ms. Hewlett, is that we were about 20% off the pace. So it means that we are not doing well in terms of revenue. But as I said, we understand that because we understand it is due to the fact that our main engines, such as tourism, continue to be offline. And in addition to that, we, the government, has had to forego a lot of revenue by giving free access to water, electricity, concessions to our farmers, etc., reduced prices. And so we have sought to carry a lot of that burden in order to continue to generate. To give a sense, the last time I was here, I reported that since we introduced this alien landholding license exemption, where we exempted the fee, that some $70 million in real estate had moved hands in Nevis. That, I think, is significant. But $70 million in real estate ordinarily the government could look forward to 20% of that. Speaking generally, because we get a 10% alien landholding license fee and we get a 10% transfer tax. So just on that figure, the government, in order to stimulate the real estate sector, has foregone that 10% alien landholding license fee. And so that represents some $7 million that has been wiped off in terms of foregone revenue. So I give that just as an indication to say that we have had challenges on all fronts in that regard. Hotel sector, my conversation with the hotel sector thus far, they are concerned. They continue to be concerned. I believe that it is no secret that the position of the hotel sector is that unless we can deal with the quarantine situation, it will continue to be difficult for them to attract guests, particularly when our neighbors and competitors, such as Anguilla, Barbados, etc., are offering only, well, they're really not offering any quarantine at all, because when you land, you're tested, and once you test negative, you're released. So some people are literally less than 24 hours. Here, people are still being told that you must quarantine for 3 days and then test and release on day 4. But I'm hopeful that that too will be relaxed as we move forward. The problem, of course, was that when we were at a point when we thought we could relax, we got hit with the surge in St. Kitts and the Lambda variant that entered our shores for the first time. So we need to look at that, but I'm hopeful that we can get that done. We're already seeing the talk of the return of cruise. So we see some signs of life, and we are hoping that we can do that in as safe a possible way that we can manage. Truth be told, Ms. Hewlett, that people are now changing the narrative and talking about living with COVID. There was a point when we thought we could beat COVID, but now I think people have accepted that COVID will be around, and so we must learn to live with it. And what we need to do is to adjust our lifestyles, ensure we get vaccinated, wear the mask, etc., which is important. Even the CDC now in the US has backtracked to say that even if you're fully vaxxed, you must now wear a mask again indoors. And that is largely because in the US they have a surge of new COVID cases, principally this Delta, dreaded Delta variant. And it allows me an opportunity to say to our people that COVID-19 has been proven statistically to have become the disease of the unvaccinated. That it is the people who are unvaccinated that are getting this disease and for whom it is creating most difficulty. And the Delta variant and other variants are only possible because COVID is getting into your system and being allowed to mutate. So when people say, oh, I'm fine, I don't need to be vaccinated, you make yourself a prime target for COVID. And I've just likened it to a monster that is circling the community, looking for the weak point, the weak spot, looking for those who are most vulnerable. That is what COVID is about, and I urge our people, therefore, to take the necessary precaution. In terms of stimulus checks under the new program, the income support program that was announced federally, I do not have the numbers, Ms. Hewlett. I know that applications have been made. I have not yet had a report from Social Services as to how many of those applications have been processed. I realize I saw a statement from the Honorable Prime Minister saying over 2,000 applications had been made nationally. How many of those have been processed for the island of Nevis? I do not yet have that. But I will have that shortly, and I'll be willing to pass that information on to you. Thank you. Are there any more questions?
Yes, good morning, Devon Cornelius, WinFM. At the last press conference, you indicated that you will be meeting with the developers of the one and only resort. Can you provide an update on that? Can you also provide an update on the hospital expansion project? Also, there was a recent breach in quarantine in Nevis. What is the NIA doing to step up surveillance at quarantine sites? Additionally, can you provide an update on how many active cases are on Nevis, how many are in hospital, and how many vaccinated? And lastly, what is your stance on mandatory vaccination for frontline or healthcare workers in light of tourism reopening? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cornelius. All very excellent questions. The one and only resort, yes, we had a meeting with the developer. I am not able to get into too much detail. Safe to say that that meeting largely surrounded the funding for the project and to determine what was the best methodology to access the necessary funding to make that project a reality. That is an ongoing conversation that we're having with the developer, and we will be in a position, I hope, to report more soon. Just to, however, remind that the developer was given until the end of this year to secure the financing for that project, and that is what we continue to work on. Hospital expansion, the teams that are working on that, of course, we have some consultants who are assisting with the interior configuration of that very important investment in our health sector, in our healthcare sector. And the last report that I had was that that team was preparing some floor plans for the interior. I have not yet seen those, but I'm told that that is being done, so I would imagine that that is imminent. That, of course, is being handled quite capably by the Junior Minister of Health, the Honorable Hazel Brantley. In terms of the breach of quarantine, it was very unfortunate. I think the public would know now that 2 individuals who were here at a hotel vacationing in place for 3 days decided that they would leave early. And I'm told, despite being told that they could not leave the property, wandered off the property and somehow found their way all the way over to St. Kitts. Well, they were people of Kittitian heritage who had come from the U.S. So they are nationals, I gather, from St. Kitts and Nevis, but had their connections with St. Kitts, familial connections with St. Kitts, but had chosen to holiday in place, vacation in place in Nevis, and decided that they would walk off. Well, they were finally caught in St. Kitts. I believe they were taken before the court, Mr. Cornelius, and they were convicted and fined, and I gather have left, paid their fine and left and gone back to the United States where they live. In terms of surveillance, you say, what are we doing to step up? I don't know what we can do to step up. The truth is that each property that is offering itself as a quarantine site, each property that is offering itself as a site for vacation in place, part of the approval process is that they must have adequate security in place. But we understand, Mr. Cornelius, that people who are bent on doing what is wrong find ways to do it. They could have jumped the fence at midnight. They could have done all kinds of things. People break out of prison, far less out of a hotel where they're quarantining in place. So I anticipate that these things will happen from time to time. And when they do, we'll simply have to respond. But we continue, of course, to encourage people to be responsible at all times in terms of what they do. You asked about the number of active cases. Right now we have 2. One is a local case in the sense that the person has no travel history. The other is a case where somebody was coming in from the UK, a returning resident here, and who would have tested positive. I am advised as of yesterday that both were doing well, neither had any symptoms, and that the expectation is good, that they would recover fully. I'm also advised that for the individual who's here with no history of travel, that thus far, as of yesterday evening, the contact tracing was in full effect and that all of those contacts had tested negative thus far. So we are hopeful that that continues and that those 2 individuals will recover quickly. Just to remind the public that Nevis has thus far had 20 cases of COVID, dating back to March, April, I believe, of 2020. And of those 20 cases, only 4 have been local. That is 16. Let me put it the other way. It might be easier for me to say. 16 have been imported of the 20. So the extent of community spread on Nevis has really, up to this date, praise be to God, been very limited. The number of vaccinated individuals, I believe the number, I tried to give the number early, it's 5,200 and something. I'm sure Ms. Hewlett can help you with the precise number, but it's over 5,000 of the first dose, and about 4,600 have received 2 full doses, and currently we had 54% of our target adult population are fully inoculated. 5,318 individuals have gotten the first dose. I'm sorry? 5,380 individuals have taken the first dose. 4621. I've taken the second dose. Okay, good. Should we make vaccination mandatory for frontline workers? It's a good question. I think legally that it is entirely permissible under the law. I have no doubt in my mind that that is legally permissible. We have heard a lot of debate about rights and individuals' rights, and I understand that debate, but we're also dealing with a highly infectious and highly dangerous disease that has shown, as we saw just recently in St. Kitts over the past several weeks, that if it gets away in the community, what kind of havoc it could wreak. And so it is an ongoing discussion, I think a worthwhile discussion. I note that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has already done something to say that you either get the vaccine or you have to test every 2 weeks at your expense. Antigua and Barbuda has now said something similar. You either get the vaccine or test every 2 weeks at your expense. And I'm advised that President Joe Biden in the United States is about to announce the same thing in the U.S. for federal frontline workers, that you either get the vaccine or you test every week in the U.S. at your expense. And so this is an issue that is happening, I believe, globally. We've already seen in some countries a very clear position in relation to the vaccinated individuals getting certain privileges because they're vaccinated, access to bars and nightclubs, access to sporting arenas. Right now in St. Kitts, we're going to have CPL, and unless you're vaccinated, you will not be able to go. So clearly, I believe a very strong message is being sent that vaccination is the way to go to beat COVID and to allow us to restore our country, restore our economy, and to get back to our way of life. So whether it's going to be made mandatory, I believe the attitude that we have had here in St. Kitts and Nevis is that we've continued to encourage, we've continued to educate, we've continued to ask for partnership on the particular issue of vaccination, and that thus far the numbers have been encouraging. Not as good as we would like, but encouraging. And I'm encouraged by people like this family I mentioned earlier, who after months have decided that they will go and get vaccinated. So sometimes, you know, Mr. Cornelius, it takes a little time for people to be persuaded to do what perhaps they always knew was the right thing to do. And it doesn't help that you have a lot of mischief makers and misleaders out there who are saying all manner of things. But I believe at the end of the day, good sense will prevail and that we will get to where we need to get to in terms of the vaccination effort. Before I invite further questions, I ought to have said when I made my introductory remarks to extend congratulations to NEVDC, one of our very important diaspora organizations in the Washington, D.C. area. 7 primary school students in Nevis would have received the inaugural Nivision Association of Washington, D.C. NEVDC Naomi Daniel Brown Scholarship for the Most Improved Student. The financial scholarship seeks to support the most improved students in grade 5 and 6 of the public primary schools. Grade 5 at 6 of the public primary schools and grade 6 at the Joycean Library Primary School, where Mrs. Daniel Brown would have taught for many years. Mrs. Daniel Brown, who passed away in 2019, was a stalwart educator and a member of the NEVDC. The award ceremony took place yesterday at the Social Security Conference Room and saw students receiving financial awards totaling $1,700 US. We want to commend and applaud NEVDC, led by Mr. Anthony Pemberton, my good friend, and represented by Ms. Lauren Rivers, for this incredible initiative. Any more questions for me?
Mr. Hanley again of the Black Home Channel. Mr. Brantley, you spent a whole press conference attacking me, a professional journalist, instead of answering the questions. I am here to ask questions on behalf of the people, and my questions today were based on your government policy, not any individual. And as you said, if you had engaged your brains instead of your mouth all morning, this is something you would have realized. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hanley, you have got your last hurrah, I hope. Yes, and I hope you feel good about yourself, that you've done something That is good. And if you say that you're a professional journalist, all I'm asking from you is that you exhibit it. That's all. I respect you as a journalist. You have come and said that you're a journalist. Well, all we've said, month after month, the same thing. Act like one. Okay. If you are one, act like one. All right? And if you are that you are a wonderful song, I know that song, right? Act like you are. That's all. Everybody else here has demonstrated their journalistic integrity. That's all. You cannot say that you are a journalist if you continue to use the opportunity to play the fool. Right? So, that's all I'm saying to you. If you want to be taken seriously, then act seriously, and you will be taken seriously. And I believe that that is advice that I will give to any young individual who's seeking to do something of worth, something of value. Okay? Are there any more questions for me?
Just one last question.
Sure.
Cornelius, WinFM. A top local blogger has alleged that the CBI program is getting the wrong attention with a reported Nigerian claiming to have conducted transactions with officials here. Are you aware of any matter of this nature pertaining to a Nigerian and our CBI program? And if so, can you comment on this type of messaging, and do they prompt investigations?
Mr. Cornelius, I've spent a life of trying my best not to give legs to things that don't warrant it, and not to give attention to, for want of better language, I would consider to be nonsense. I find that a lot of people who are in the business of seeking attention put things on social media for that purpose, and I have sought myself not to engage. Just this morning, I was sent a copy of a plea deal. This is something that in America, people who are charged with criminal offenses can enter into a plea arrangement, plead guilty to something, and they do a deal. And a section of that was highlighted for me and said to me that this is what apparently some mischief makers have been using to say is a big scandal. And so I read it avidly because I'm always concerned to avoid scandals. And when I looked at it, you realize that there's really nothing to it. The paragraph that I read simply said that this Nigerian scammer, I can't remember his name, they call him Hush Puppy, I think, that in that plea deal he said that he gave some $50,000 to a co-conspirator, and that money was used for purposes of acquiring Sincus Nevis citizenship. It doesn't say anything about anybody in Sincus Nevis being involved in any illegality. It simply spoke that this gentleman gave $50,000 to one of his co-conspirators, who then paid. We have a citizenship by investment program. We have lawyers, we have other professionals involved in that program. They don't work for free. They get paid for their services. And when I saw the number 50,000, I said, you know, that's pretty much what you would pay if you're paying for your government fees, you're paying for the registration fees, you're paying your legal fees, etc. So I want to make it very clear that based on the little that I have seen in the public domain, there is absolutely no allegation being made against anybody in St. Kitts and Nevis, any service provider, any government official, or anyone else. And sometimes what happens is that people don't bother to take the time because they're more interested in the sensationalism and the attention grabbing. Because if people bother to take the time, you'd realize that all it's saying, it's like me saying that Hush Puppy gave $50,000 to a co-conspirator who used it to pay down on a house in Nevis. That doesn't allege any impropriety on the part of anybody in Nevis. It is merely saying what was done with $50,000 of the money that Hush Puppy would have stolen. So I want to make it very clear that I have absolutely no information that anything untoward would have happened here locally, or that anybody locally would have engaged in any untoward behavior. And so I put that in what I would call the disregard bundle. That is one of those stories that really I don't think warrants much more ventilation because there is nothing to it. Now, if, of course, something else were to come to light, and that would be an entirely different matter. Any more questions for me? Ms. Hewlett? No? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 11:30. I think that's a good time, therefore. I want to thank all of you who have come, Black-owned media, Win FM, NTV, and, of course, VON Radio, for being here. I also would want to thank my good friend Carl Tyson, who's very quietly in the back there. He provides all the backdrops that we enjoy to try and make this experience a little better. I want to thank, of course, P.S. Wakely Daniel, who has been with me from the start of this and who tends to be the hype man. He's the man who introduces me. So I want to thank him. He's the flavor of this press conference. So thank you very much, Mr. Daniel, and thank you all. I look forward, of course, to engaging with you again at the next go-around, the next press conference, hopefully in another month or so. Thank you, and God bless you, and may you all enjoy your holiday weekend, and remember the memorial service on Sunday, but also remember that Sunday is celebrated August 1st as Emancipation Day. So I would hope that persons do not lose sight of the significance of the holiday. Monday and Tuesday holidays, so please enjoy and try your very best to stay safe. Thank you.